Basha Paro, YNet 7. Thank you for tuning the replay. So, during the protest, pictures like the one over my shoulder, right? What if this was the normal entry to your neighborhood on a daily basis? How could this become the new norm? If you provide a service and you somehow get the people to ask for increased versions of your service, then you wind up making more. Let's take a look at this video here to warm up to the matter. For entertainment purposes, we're going to review some websites, videos, and starting now.
Say to Representative Sanfilippo's call for you to activate the National Guard to address violence in Milwaukee.
And now to our big story at 5. Calls to bring in the National Guard to stop the violence in Milwaukee and the governor's response.
12 News' Kent Wainscott is live at City Hall. And Kent, there are some harsh words being used.
Yeah, Joyce, Joe Sanfilippo is a Republican state rep from Waukesha County. He describes the violence in Milwaukee as a war zone-like setting. He wants the governor to call in the National Guard. We asked the governor and Milwaukee's mayor about that today. A violent weekend in Milwaukee. Police say 15 shootings and 3 homicides is why New Berlin Republican Rep Joe Sanfilippo says he's calling on Governor Evers to activate the Wisconsin National Guard to help restore safety in Milwaukee neighborhoods. We asked the governor about that today. Governor, what do you say to Representative Sanfilippo's call for you to activate the National Guard to address violence in Milwaukee?
Well, first of all, the representative has to understand that the National Guard has been on call, working all across the state, you know, from the beginning of the pandemic to this very moment.
Sanfilippo told me that he did not have time to speak with us on camera today, but his statement went on to say that Milwaukeeans, quote, deserve better than to live and work in a war zone-like setting. Instead of calling in the National Guard, both Evers and Mayor Tom Barrett urged Sanfilippo and fellow Republicans to better fund violence reduction measures in the budget. Dismiss the need for the Guard here.
I don't see, again, we have people out, we've got police officers.
Pay attention to this.
But I am concerned about the long-term viability of the city to provide for the police department. And that's where he is in a key position to help us. And
I reject the idea that somehow we can replace mental health services and violence protection services and all the other things that deal with the cause of that. We just ignore that and bring in the National Guard.
Replace mental health services, replace protection services, replace, and he was listing all these different services, right? It's money. The reason why this stuff doesn't get any better, I'm not saying that you would have to fix the economy, right? But instead of doing that, it's just like how some people have mentioned the medical industry. The cure, there's no money in the cure. The money is in the treatment of the symptoms. So sometimes things play right into the favor of those that you're claiming you don't want to benefit or you don't want to give an advantage to. If not careful, your actions could become your own bait. Right? So At the same time, could they be warming up the population to this fact, to this possibility? Could this be what your local streets look like sooner than you think? Some research shows that it takes them 15 minutes to establish a checkpoint. All the gear. I have an article here we'll get to in a second. But at first, let's take a look at this one. And when I saw this, I saw conditioning, because stay with me and I'm going to show you what an actual checkpoint looks like. See, because we're used to this, right? And then maybe this might come to mind. So it says border checkpoints discourage travelers between states, and this was back in April of 2020. Excuse me. So when I saw this, I'm seeing the possibility of conditioning. Yeah, they had the necessity. Yeah, you have your basic DUI checkpoints, right, that you're getting familiar with in your local towns and cities. Then you had the pandemic, and it brought its checkpoints like this. Then you had the riots that brought checkpoints that look more like this. And I'll show you where I'm getting to in a moment. But to go over this a little bit, for those that didn't know, this was a thing during that situation. So Texas Department, it shows there, that's Texas. But here, if you look, Texas, Delaware, Florida, and Rhode Island at that time, who knows if there, I'm not saying there weren't more later on, but are stopping drivers with out-of-state license plates and ordering them to quarantine for 2 weeks if they intend to stay in the state. Those entering the state for essential business reasons such as commercial traffic appear to be exempt. And the paragraph before that said Americans have long held the open road as integral to their freedom. See, I still can't be. But with the coronavirus pandemic, the once unthinkable has begun to happen. States have set up checkpoints to discourage other states' residents from crossing their borders. Now, it goes on to say how constitutionally states cannot prohibit residents of another state from entering, but they can require quarantines or statements of purpose. So I think this is pretty important here. Quarantines or statements of purpose. Okay? Because this is showing an example at the state border. But what if it's more at home than that? So when we go and look at Wikipedia for their definition of what's known as a random checkpoint, right? We see a random checkpoint is a military and police tactic. In a military context, checkpoints involve the setup of a hasty roadblock. Now keep in mind these terms, because I'm going to show you what a hasty roadblock is in a minute. So by mobile, truck, or armed vehicle mounted infantry to disrupt unauthorized or unwanted movement or military activity. So see, the key wording there is to disrupt unauthorized or unwanted movement. Or military activity. Not movement of military activity. Right? disrupt unauthorized or unwanted movement or military activity, and to check for valid identification and search for contraband, fugitives, or weapons that are not permitted in civilian hands. I think someone's brilliance is actually going to make a huge flaw, because if the objective is to keep the teams on separate sides, then this continuation of current climate would only serve as an invitation to share the same domain. Let's continue. Random checkpoints are set up to achieve surprise, as opposed to known permanently located checkpoints. And I see that as being like your known border, like when you cross over to Mexico or something, and your borders, your toll booths, because that they're already structured. They could easily be switched over to a checkpoint, no problem. So, which suspects could circumvent, to continue here, which suspects could circumvent. They are often established in locations where they cannot be observed by approaching traffic until it's too late to withdraw and escape without being observed. So then the patrol car, right? The patrol car, equipped police units regularly use random checkpoints to detect drivers who are suspected of impaired driving or anything at this point, for entertainment purposes in a sci-fi world. Police also use hastily set up roadblocks to check cars and car trunks when they are pursuing an armed and dangerous fugitive. So, set up roadblocks to check cars and car trunks. As with military checkpoints, sobriety checkpoints and fugitive roadblock searches are located in an area where drivers cannot see. All right, so here we go. Check this out. The unit establishing a military checkpoint must carry or obtain the materials necessary to construct it. It might use a large vehicle or multiple vehicles, such as armored personnel carriers, to block the road. In addition to blocking the road with vehicles, because some people for a while have been reporting about military assets moving around the country, like on trains and stuff, and where would they be going, what would they be doing with them. So the road hold on, let me get the mouse out the way here. The road may also be partially blocked with concertina wire, right? Or heavy objects such as sandbags or concrete blocks. The vehicles might be positioned to partially or entirely block the road or route. The search area might be the space between multiple vehicles. Sentries might be positioned at each end of the checkpoint and are covered by mounted or dismounted machine gun positions. A reaction force may be designated and concealed nearby. So, vehicular and pedestrian traffic, right, that approach with the intent of passing flying checkpoints can be asked to produce identification and submit to a search of their persons or vehicle. The trunks of cars are typically searched. In some countries, soldiers inspect the bottom of the car with mirrors to look for bombs. In some cases, people without proper identification or those who arouse suspicion may be refused passage, detained, or arrested. Contraband confiscated etc., etc., etc. So a random checkpoint must be functional within 15 minutes. A random checkpoint must be functional within 15 minutes of the unit's arrival on site. So when and if this goes down, a checkpoint setup, it's not going to be something that you got a lot of time to consider if you know how you feel about it. All right? So let's get back to it. And establish security teams 50 to 100 meters on both sides of the area to be controlled. Advanced observation posts may also be positioned further out if desired. When large geographical areas need to be monitored, some types of checkpoints may quickly be airlifted by helicopter from one location to another. All right? So let's take a look at this video here. I got a video, and I'm going to show you the difference between what you think a checkpoint is and what a checkpoint really is. Because, like I said, if things continue, this is what you're inviting to, if not your street, then your block, your area. It'll be a lot closer than you think.
Hi, I'm MA1 Michael Turner, and this right here is our ECP, or entry control point. The purpose of the ECP and the training behind it is to give the service member a better understanding of what's necessary when they're dealing with personnel, foreign nationals, whether it be people coming in for meetings, just a regular base camp cleanup for trash, because granted, this right here that we're doing is in country here, stateside, but when you go overseas, you're gonna have everything from usually sewage, trash, supplies for the galley, as well as other materials brought into your base camp. So it's very key, very important.
And as they mentioned in base camp and stuff, just think about, replace the word base camp with like your one, your city, your town. And then two, like just start cutting down from your major arteries to the next level, smaller arteries, and then to the next level. You know what I mean? And depending on the size of your neighborhood, like this could be at the entry point to your neighborhood. Like, and this is what they're going to be doing at every single one of them. Screening, identification, like, you see what I'm saying? This is what they're beginning to ask for, apparently, for help in certain areas. And if that's the case, because of, I'm not saying what's happening, but what you're sacrificing, right?
Important. These personnel that are at the ECP are out here 24 hours a day doing their job, inspecting vehicles, inspecting personnel. When convoys and patrols roll out, these guys get the thumbs up from our BSC to allow them to leave camp. When they're coming back into camp, they also get the thumbs up from the BSC to allow these personnel to come back in. It's just not having a thing, or it's just not a thing of having the gate open to let anybody come in or out. This right here essentially is the tip of the spear from a defensive posture and a camp security posture. So again, like I said, you'll have the way this is set up currently. There are our defensive perimeters. The barricades are designed to slow the flow of traffic in, not to stop necessarily, but to slow them down. And that gives the gunners a crew serve nest here with the 50 cal that's pointed, its principal direction of fire is right down the ECP access point, as well as your 240 gunners on the left and the right-hand side of your main ECP access point. That your 50 cal gunner acts as an overwatch, and any vehicles that would try to rush the ECP, his job is to take that vehicle out. Again, the barricades are designed such that it slows the flow of traffic because people have to weave in and around those barricades. Now here in a training environment, we have plastic barricades, but out in real world, real time, we would have concrete barricades. They would have to be brought in by heavy equipment. The barricades serve also as cover for our personnel if they need to get down behind one of them. As you see there, most of them are situated around at least the barricade to provide them some measure of cover, and they're typically taller than this, or taller than what they're behind as well. They act also as blast barriers to protect them in the event of an IED that may go off. Now your personnel that are farther out, and I don't know if you can see that from here, but personnel that are farther out, you have a contact and another sentry. That contact sentry is the very tip of the spear, in that they're going to be the first person to deal with whatever's coming in. So it's very key that they know how to talk to people, all right, and they need to know their escalation of force, the rules for the use of force, as well as their standing rules of engagement. So essentially, in a nutshell, this is what we do at the ECP. We protect the camp.
Stop! Stop! They're coming out.
I'm Lieutenant Junior Grade Ryan Kennedy. I'm the Defense Unit Commander for ACB2. I'm here to describe some of the components of an entry control point as we build it up over the coming days. Right now we're kind of in a hasty entry control point, and in a couple days we'll come back.
So remember the term when we were reading that said hasty control point, right?
Back and revisit this and show you what our final entry control point will look like. The first component to our entry control point is a serpentine structure. It forces vehicles to slow down because they have to weave back and forth as they navigate through between them, and that brings them to an approachable speed. In the coming days, in this area here, you will see a vehicle and a personnel inspection area, and we will do all of that under bright lights and away from our entry control point down there, in case there is a IED in one of the vehicles. That brings us to our gate right now, and our gate is a hasty gate. It's just to cordon off the controlled area versus the uncontrolled area. And right inside the gate we have a couple of bunkers with our first contact and our overwatch personnel. The role of the first contact is to check badges and IDs, and to have first contact with any personnel walking up to the ECP. The second person here would have overwatch over that person. And in the coming days, once we set up our inspection area, we will have 2 people performing inspections.
Pretty much out here at the ECP entry control point. We're pretty much standing guard out here, taking accountability for who leaves and who enters. Try and keep civilians out, keep a lookout for hostile forces.
We have 2 light plants. Our light plants provide 2 functions. One, obviously, is to light up the enemy position, and the second is actually to hide our crew serve weapons up high. The same manner that when driving down a street and a vehicle coming at you with its bright lights on makes it hard to see behind the vehicle. That's that same principle that we employ. And then here you actually see our choke point. Choke point is established by our 2 ISO containers. That also gives us our overwatch position for our crew serve weapons. The center crew serve weapon is our 50 cal. He has one job, and that is to stare as far as he can down that ECP, and he's got a set of measurements on where to employ and when to employ that weapon.
Right now we're up here manning the nest with our crew serve weapons. I had a 240 to my right, and I'm on the 50 caliber machine gun. My principal direction of fire is the road, the ECP, which you can enter, and my objective is to stop vehicles and groups of people in sizes, numbers ranging from 12 to 14, so squad size or larger. This is a 12-hour shift, so we'll be up until about 8 o'clock tonight. And looking forward to getting some action.
And then we have a 240 Bravo and a 240 Bravo that are taking our flanks. And those components right there show the current situation for our entry control point. We will continue to prove it over a couple of days. We'll come back in a couple of days and show what the changes that we've made to it.
So take that in consideration. I think when you look at this last few things from some people's perspective, it may be more that of a soft conditioning going on. This type of the basic DUI checkpoint, this speed trap checkpoint, then they got the the flu checkpoint, then they got the riot checkpoint, and then before you know it, there'll be real checkpoints. Let me know what you think about that. Again, this is all just for entertainment purposes. So if you could see this coming to your community one day, would you feel like it's needed? Would you be against having it in your neck of the woods? How would you feel about it if you had to go through checkpoints on a daily basis in and out of your own neighborhood? Let me know. Pasha Paro, YNet7